Hello, everybody. It's Paul Neeson with Torah Life Ministries. I'm really excited about today's guest. We have our friends from 119 Ministries online. Guys, say hello to the Torah Life audience.
Hi,
Hello.
how you doing?
Good. Can you each introduce yourselves?
This is John from 119 Ministries, and
This is Steve from 119 Ministries.
Oh, that's wonderful, and I definitely want to know more about 119 Ministries. But before we get into that, I want to discuss a little about each one of you. Now, you both grew up, from what I understand, you were both Christian growing up, correct? Eh,
yes, we are.
Correct.
Okay, and so did you know each other because you're originally from Missouri, both of you? Is that correct, or you lived in Missouri, right?
Yeah, want me to go and just kind of start us
Sure.
off?
Go
Okay.
ahead.
So, yeah, Steve and I, we went to the same rather large Baptist church in the St. Louis, Missouri region. And I went there with my wife for a few years, and I had a passion for end times. And I came across some information and wanted to strike up a conversation with my pastor, who was my pastor at that time. And he wasn't too interested in talking to me, but he's like, "Hey, I got the guy you need to talk to." So Steve here, he was the resident end times expert, if you could say that, in the church or the Baptist church. And so I got a chance to kind of meet with him, and we started meeting about every week. And it was a real blessing because he helped me understand a lot of things that I really misunderstood and didn't really realize. And so I got to get a lot of dispensationalistic thinking out of my head, which was hard for me to do, but he was able to accomplish that in some way or another. And it was through those discussions that, in realizing a few things that really kind of shook up my paradigm or way of understanding things, that I started becoming kind of frustrated with things, and I just started praying and crying out to God, "Hey, I just want to know your truth, and I want to understand it." And in my mind, I was thinking in the context of end times, and of course, he just apparently had other thoughts on this, I guess. But a few weeks later, I started realizing that I really need to understand who Israel was, and because I didn't understand Israel, I felt like I didn't really understand end times because of it. Israel seemed to be from the start of Israel to the very end seemed to be a dominant theme in the scriptures, and not understanding exactly the relationship there, I felt like I was doing myself a disservice in understanding His Word better. So I really began to dig into that, and I wrote a paper. And one of the things I like to do is I like to write and then send things out there online and just watch everybody. I try to attack it and see where I'm wrong on everything, and that happens to me quite a bit.
So you're
And
still doing that.
still doing that. And so what I do, I'll come to a conclusion, and I'll try to prove myself wrong on it. And a lot of times I just request other people's help on that. And so I wrote a paper called "The Era of Dispensationalism," and that was really just because of conversations that Steve and I had. And in reality, what ended up happening is the end conclusion is that we are Israel. And when I posted that on an end times forum, uh, a lot of people that at that time I was like, well, these are a bunch of Jews, but I didn't know better at the time. But all of a sudden, a bunch of Jews really liked the paper and says like, "Hey, this is great. This is one of the best we've read." And then I realized, hey, they're keeping all these feast days. They don't eat ham. So what's going on here? Why are all these people? And then I realized exactly what just happened if we're Israel, we need to be following the commandments that were given to Israel. And that really is really what started my whole search on trying to understand, what's Paul mean, and how do we understand Paul? And then, and once I started coming to those conclusions, I started writing a lot, and trying to, doing the same thing I did before. Presented it to Steve, and you can kind of pick up from there if you'd like.
Yeah, yeah. I was over all the video elements at our church, and one day after doing some video stuff, John came to me and goes, "Hey, I got some things for you to look at." And I said, "Okay." And again, we had been talking in times and stuff. He was a big pre-tribber, I was a big post-tribber, all that kind of stuff. And when he came to me, he says, "Hey, you got to watch these DVDs." And I said, "Okay." And he goes, "It's going to change everything." And it's so funny because when he first said that to me, we've chuckled about this. I initially, first thought came to my mind, I'm going, "Oh, what's he going to try and give me now?" And so we laugh about it now, but it took me around probably 2 weeks that I struggled with the Torah thing, because my history, I was basically brought up in church all my life. I mean, the first 4 years of my life, I was United Pentecostal Church, and then the next rest of my life, I was either in Assembly of God or non-denominational church. Actually, I was in Assembly of God for all my teen years and growing up. And eventually, I became a youth pastor, and then traveled as an evangelist, and then I was even a pastor for a small time. And so I was well ingrained into the Christian church, if you will. But at the same time, I was one who was willing to buck the system, because I was a post-tribber, which I was never popular with hardly anybody. And um, so when John came to me, it did hit me hard. I'm going, man, this changes everything. And it was really hard for me. And in fact, one night, the night before I finally came to the light, if you will, I threw my Bible on the bed and I said, God, I give up. I'm not going to pray. I'm not going to talk to you about anything, because I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. I'm a person who sees everything black and white. It's either wrong or it's right, one or the other. And I was presented with a position that I see both sides, and I struggled. And the next morning, I was on my way to work, and I don't even know what made me think of it, but it just clicked. And all of a sudden, joy just filled my heart like never before, because all of a sudden, all the dots started connecting. All the stuff I've known, all my past life of preaching and teaching, all these things started making sense and had value to it like never before. And so that was the beginning for me. And from that moment on, John and I were both just kind of on fire, and couldn't wait to tell somebody else about it. And you know how it is. And you get excited about wanting to tell the people who you know is going to get it, that you thought was going to get it, I should say, because the next thing you know, the persecution starts coming.
Yeah, in our excitement and zeal, we were like, well, let's share this with everybody, and we expect everybody just to be just as excited as we were.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, that wasn't the case. And so, as many know who have kind of gone through similar circumstances, you start getting questions from your friends, you start getting questions from your family, and a lot of them are sincere questions. A lot of them are really just trying to trip you up. But in receiving all those questions, we realized we're answering the same things over and over again. So we started trying to figure out ways to answer these questions in written form. So that way, when we were asked that question again, we didn't have to type up, be up till 4 a.m. Before we go to work and type everything up again. So
And again.
Yeah. Before I want to hear about people's reactions, but before I ask you that, I've always said, and I say often, people just aren't reading their Bibles, because if they were, they would get it. But I've been corrected, because I've met a good amount of Christians that went to seminary or cemetery or however you want to say it, and they've been Christians their whole life, and they are good Bible students. They know their Bible, they read their Bible, but they still missed it. So I've been corrected in saying, okay, yes, some people just aren't reading their Bible and they're just not seeing it. But you both, especially you, Steve, as from what you just said, are a great example. You knew your Bible. So how could you know your Bible and have read your Bible and missed what it's saying?
Well, in all honesty, I mean, I don't know if you've watched our teaching, The Lost Sheep. I think that our eyes were prevented from seeing it for a certain degree. And there's a certain time frame element that's very plausible. You can't prove it by any stretch of the imagination. But around 2009, 2010, if you look at the Hebrew Roots movement, it exploded in those years. And that's when John and I both came to Torah in those years. And I think to a certain element that we were prevented from seeing it. Because let's think about it. In the Torah, if you follow it, you're blessed, okay? And I think because of the curse that fell upon Ephraim, we were prevented from being able to enjoy those blessings. And now, slowly but surely, that curse is now falling away. And now, obviously, until the Lord returns, it will be fully restored, if you will. But I think in all of us, though, if I can backtrack just for a second, even when I was going to this Baptist church, very large Baptist church, God was dealing with me on things, like the Sabbath, for one. I'll never forget cutting my lawn on a Sunday afternoon, just cutting it, and that time I used to use for prayer. And I'm thinking, if this is the Sabbath, why am I working? Why am I not honoring the Sabbath? Things like that. And so that was really digging in my heart, and especially Christmas. My wife will tell you I never liked Christmas for the longest of times, and she always called me a Scrooge, a humbug. I said, I said, if it's biblical, I said, why didn't we see the New Testament people do it? So even then, I got to confess that the Lord was dealing with me on things then. But whenever the Torah was presented to me as far as being applicable today, man, that was it, And I can tell you, I've preached messages on righteousness, sin, and I was so close. Till I look back and going, man, I was just almost there. Why didn't I just cross that line? Because I didn't see the line to cross it.
Sure, sure, and I hear that. Yeah, I hear that from a good amount of Christians, and it's one Christian told me it's just a mindset that we're just brought up in this Christianity, and we're taught to so avoid the law and the law and the law, and then when their eyes are open, they realize it's Torah and it's instructions and it's for everyone, and it's just amazing. So when you guys finally got this and started applying it to your lives, how was the reaction from your family and friends? So you go home and you tell your spouses, hey, guess what? We're not doing Christmas. I'm keeping Sabbath on Saturday, and things like this. What were the reactions from your friends, your family, and your church?
What friends?
So yeah, I mean, I wish it was true for everyone, but I mean, I was certainly blessed that my wife got it, and so that doesn't happen to everybody, but and that must be very difficult. But in presenting it to my wife, she was a little taken back, and she was one of those that loved the traditions of Christmas and Easter, and so I think that was the most difficult for her. But then, of course, then you're blessed with more biblical traditions and biblical holidays, and you don't realize that fully at the time, but then that's part of the walk and part of the blessings that come out of it. And so my wife got it, but our friends and family, even close to us, not so much. And there was some friction points, and there's some tension, especially in the first 6 months. And it seems to be, in talking with lots of people on this very matter, the friends and family who don't get it when it's presented to them immediately, they feel like they're being persecuted in the way that you're looking at them and judging them. And really what we found is best is just keep pressing with love and keeping the lines of communication open, staying connected. And that tension tends to dissipate about 6 months or so later. Now that's different for everybody, but it seems to be that the happy medium is about 6 months, and so it takes some time. But with as things get better and tensions are mitigated, then you have more opportunity to present them the truth, not by just telling it to them, but actually walking it in front of them. And so. That's basically been our experience. I know for Steve, it's been kind of the same thing. Is we've had friends that have gotten it, we have friends that have not. We have had family that have gotten it, we have had family that have not. And to each person, it's different, and how they receive it. And it wasn't that was true even in the first century.
Sure.
There's nothing new under the sun. I mean, the Pharisees, Sadducees, different denominations that existed back then, they all had their own paradigms of how they saw everything. They knew the scriptures very well too.
That's right.
I would argue even better than probably a lot of us today. And you get stuck in your own way of thinking, and it's hard for us to admit that we're wrong sometimes. And there's all kinds of different reasons. The reality is if it was just one root cause, our job of sharing the truth would be a lot easier. But the reality is we're dealing with a lot of different people, a lot of different, very diverse paradigms, and very different ways of thinking, and all different reasons why some people just choose not to see it.
I think too on that is no one wants to confess they were wrong. I think it's pride, because it means if you're wrong, you've been wrong all these years, and that's something I know I personally had to struggle with, and I think that's something that we see with people today. They don't want to admit they can be wrong. Now, granted, they'll say, "Oh, I can be wrong on this or that, wrong on that," but when you present it that they are wrong, or that the facts are in front of them and it proves them wrong, that's when they start backtracking, and then they just deny it. And that's concerning to me, because that's a point of rejecting Torah to a degree when you have the knowledge.
Sure. Well, here's a good question I asked Christians who are people that were brought up Christian and now they've gotten it. Is that if somebody would have, let's say 10 years ago, somebody would have presented to you what you're trying to present to them right now, knowing how you were back then, would your reaction have been similar to them? Now?
I think it depends on how it's presented. I know that if someone would say, hey, you're supposed to be following the law, my initial responses was, we can't do sacrifices today. Christ did away with the law. All of the typical responses. And I think knowing me, myself anyway, I did study and dig. And that's how we try to present it now, is to get people to dig. Bring a point up that challenges them and encourage them to test it. And because a lot of times when people hear something, they just, that's wrong, and they walk the other way. And so I hope and pray that people do accept our encouragement to test everything. Test it. Test your faith. Test what we're saying. Because we can be wrong. We've been wrong before. We've been proven wrong on several things. So that's not an issue. The issue is we're all pursuing truth. Are you willing to put your faith on the line for the word of truth? And that's what we hope and pray that we're doing.
Wonderful, and I love the way you do it. And like you answered, and I have in common with you, is instead of answering the same question 100 times, I love to make a nice video and just send people to the video. I've had a chance to present it in an educational way, and they have a chance to sit down and watch that and get the best answer other than a quick answer, because I've already answered it 19 times that day. So that's wonderful. Now, you started a ministry called 119 Ministries where you do that on your website, which is testeverything.net.
Mm-hmm.
Testeverything.net. On this website, and I want everyone to go there and check it out. Any question people have about the Hebraic roots movement or Messianic or Christianity or anything, the end times, you created these wonderful videos. Now, when did you come up with the idea, and why 119 Ministries the name?
Well, really, the whole ministry was birthed by accident, at least accident from our vantage point.
Yeah.
And as we were saying earlier, coming out of the whole drama of sharing with your friends and family the truth over and over again, you begin developing written teachings, or basically just things you can cut and paste and send back to them to answer the same questions that you get. Not just because you're trying to be lazy, but just because it's more effective and efficient. And if you can write it once the best way that you can, then do it once and try to share it with as many people as you can that ask that question. And in doing that, we realized that other people found value in that, and that we started sharing our written teachings, and we were like, well, there's no reason we can't do this on video, and there's more history behind that than just that. But we started making them on video, and when we started sharing them on video, people found value in those as well. And so our goal was to be as clear and concise, quick, and distinct as possible in our videos, presented in a very professional and clean way. And so we've been trying to do that more and more as we have the time. And so far it's been a blessing, but really it's became what we now know as 119 Ministries. And when we were sitting down one day at a table saying, well, what should we call this ministry? Every ministry's got a name, just so that way people have a way to refer to it. And one thing we decided up front is we didn't want it to be about us. So we made a decision kind of up front not to really put our names in the videos and not put it on the website. We want it to be about glorifying Him, and everybody learning about Him, and not saying, well, this person said this person said that, as though we have any credibility or merit. It matters what we say in the first place. It matters what the Word says.
Mm-hmm.
So we wanted to focus on, well, what part of the Word hits really hard what we are trying to do as a ministry, and Psalm 119 was the answer for that.
Yeah.
It really spoke on how much of His love for the Torah, and in about every possible way. And one of the things that we learned a little bit later, which is rather interesting, Yeshua calling Himself the Alpha and the Omega, which basically in the Hebrew meaning the Aleph and the Tav. Well, Psalm 119 is Hebraic poetry that starts with an Aleph and ends with a Tav. Mm-hmm. And so Yeshua, in a quite literal sense, is referring to Himself as Psalm 119. So by us teaching everything that's about Psalm 119 to the world, we're actually bringing our Messiah in the same capacity to the world as well. And that should make sense, because He called Himself the Word of God, and that's what Psalm 119 is all about. So that's basically how that all happened, I suppose.
And the ministry, besides both of you right now as part of the ministry, how many people, or are there any? Is it just a small growing ministry, or is it something where a lot of people have jumped on and you got a big a big group there in Costa Rica or down there. How is it? What is it?
Sometimes it's funny that people have a perception that 119 is this big, massive organization. It's not, but we have been blessed that we've been getting help. When we first started, Steve and I were both working full-time day jobs and doing full-time ministry and full-time family, and it's gradually evolved to the fact, more of just doing ministry. We even moved our families to a place that we can actually afford to do ministry full-time now. And that's been a real blessing. Did you have anything that you want to kind of say on that?
No, you're right on.
So, we've been doing full-time ministry for about 2 years now, and in this year alone, we've been blessed that we actually have a full-time graphics and video editor who's just stellar at what he does, and he's not only creative and requires a little direction, but he knows what he's doing much better than we do. So that's been a real blessing. We launched a new website through some of his efforts, and we're remastering a lot of our old videos, and we're making a lot of new ones. And we have administrative help now. We have a lot of volunteers translating into Polish, Italian, Russian, and French and Spanish. And that's in videos as well. So there's a lot of great things going on that we're pretty excited about. It is becoming more and more difficult to manage it between the two of us. But Yah seems to have means presented to us, as we start basically kind of falling down and saying this is a little overwhelming. He kind of helps us out. So it's
Sure. Now tell me something. Come on, you guys seem like you got this going on. Tell me something you guys disagree with. Is there any major disagreements you have when it or something something you'd be like, no, I just disagree with you there. Because me and I have friends that are doing this, and we don't always agree on everything. So I'm sure people would be interested. Is there anything you guys disagree with that you just haven't come to the same conclusion on? Maybe a better way to say it.
Nothing's really comes to mind. I mean, there might be little things that would actually even be hard to recollect. I know this. Anything comes to mind for you?
Not right now. There's certain things that will be brought up, and if there's like not enough evidence on either side, one can be leaning one way, one can be leaning the other way, and we'll go, yeah, this is good. I don't know, and so we just shelf it, And so, to us, there's just so much else out there to be focused on than disagreements. I mean, if the truth says it, then that's it. Now, obviously, that's been like that way forever. So why in the world do we still have all these divisions? Good question. I think a lot of times we were brought up to believe something, and it was hard to get those frames of mind out of what we're coming from. And I'll be honest with you too. I just don't see if it's debatable, then let it be debatable. If it's not going to mean salvation one way or the other, Torah is it. And calendar is a huge issue like today. There's so many views on what way to do the calendar. Do it the way you believe it needs to be done, and that's what we're all supposed to do. Follow the Torah the best we know we can, and move forward from there. But at the same time, be open to being wrong, and that's what we all need to be doing. I wish we would get some pride out of all of us. Pride is just an issue that is bad. In all honesty, what's the first sin from the beginning? So, and I can only say that between me and John, if we do have a disagreement, it's because we just see something differently. But yeah, it's never been an issue at this time, and we both know each other's heart. It's not to say I'm right, you're wrong. It would be because I really think this is it, and because we know each other, that's their viewpoint. We can accept that so much more easier. But it's not out of I'm right, you're wrong. It's out of, man, I'm really struggling with this because I think this is it. And so knowing that we both have a heart for the Lord and not being right, but just pursuing truth, I think that's what's helped our relationship. We know each other in that light.
Now, is there, besides topics that you haven't had time to study out and make videos on, or even haven't come to a conclusion with, is there any topic that you guys know the answers, but maybe because of controversy or for whatever reason you'll avoid, you won't touch? Is there anything you won't talk about? Or is
I don't think so.
No, they're actually the ones that are more controversial are the ones we're trying to get out sooner.
Yeah.
Because that way, if there is any ability to offer clarity on that for whatever it's worth, for whatever we might be able to add to it, or assist with some of that division, and those are things that we're trying to really focus on now. I mean, the reality is we got too much to focus on.
Yeah, there's just so much.
Yeah, we're doing doing a lot is like, hey, what's the problems in Hebrew roots today? So what are those divisive topics? What can we add out there that doesn't cause more problems, but maybe helps a little bit? And
that's our goal, is to help offer solutions.
Yeah.
Not to say we're right, but to say, hey, have we looked at it in the slides? Like we just completed circumcision, and obviously John did the sunburn, which is a real hot topic, but not necessarily in the Hebrew roots per se. But still, it's all about offering possible solutions. Let's all work together on it. That's our goal.
Mm-hmm. And one of the more recent things that Steve and I both released teachings on in the series is the Brit Hadashah series, which lately more and more we see a lot of more anti-missionary activity where people are being drawn away from the Brit Hadashah and Yeshua and just focusing more and only on the Tanakh as denying anything past that as valid. And so we've been focusing on that activity a lot lately because we feel that there's just a lot of opportunity to present things clearly and answer questions that a lot of people just don't take the time to answer, and then a lot of people get confused by it. So we've been spending a lot of time on that. But we actually we have a whole project list that's online, or we share between each other in our ministry, and we're booked for the next 2 to 3 years in making teachings. And
I understand that. Yeah, I understand that. So tell me, what's each one of you, real quick, what's your favorite Bible translation?
Oh, wow.
Well, mine. I can't say I have a favorite, but I do favor the ESV. I think it's, though I know it doesn't have the sacred names and stuff in there, but I can mentally put those in as I'm reading it. But I think the translation in itself has a good cross between readability and word-for-word translation from the original text. But there's no perfect translation out there. No one would. I would urge caution anybody that actually says there's a perfect translation out there, but it's the one I use the most. But that's always, of course, with the Hebrew and Greek right next to it as necessary, or the Aramaic. There's that version as well. There's value in a lot of different texts, but for daily study and reading, I start there and kind of go out.
Sure. What about you, Steve?
Yeah, I lean towards the NIV, but only for two reasons. One, because that's what the majority of the church uses, and so if that's what they use, I want to reach out to them with it. And two, I was brought up with it. All my notes in my Bible, I used to be a person who writes in his Bible all the time. I have literally 20 years of notes written in one Bible, and it's NIV. And so I'll use that for the mere purpose of using my notes. But when I'm on my computer, I got NIV, the NASV, you name it, they're all next to it. But just like John says, we have the Greek and the Hebrew right next to it because we're testing everything, doing our best anyway. And so knowing that it's just that they're translations, they're not the original scripts. So they're going to alter something somewhere. And we just need to do our best to be open. And as John said, it is concerning to us when we have someone say to us, you should be using this version, you should be using that version. But they're just versions. And so our goal is to find what works best with the NIV, the King James, or the Hebrew or the Greek itself. Those are the versions that we need to stick to because those are the originals. So we're doing our best to utilize that.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, guys, your website is testeverything.net. It's also 119ministries.com, the number 119, and then ministries.com. In closing, what would you like to add? And we'll have you on again as a guest, and if anyone has questions or comments, post them below the videos. We're not going to wait 2 years to get them again. We'll have them again. So what do you want to close with?
I think if I could just offer some words of encouragement to everybody out there, and some humble suggestions is just be patient and loving and kind to anyone you're sharing the truth with. Not only with those who don't know the truth, but also those who claim to walk Torah. When you're part of a ministry, you see everything. We get it, and this is to be expected. We get attacked, daily. People hate us. There's whole websites dedicated to how wrong we are about everything, and that's fine. But realize that not everybody can handle that. So make sure that when we're sharing the truth, when we're disagreeing, make sure that we do it respectfully and in peace and kindness, because in the end, all that matters is the relationships we have with each other and relationships we have with Him which is all founded on love, which is all founded on the Torah. So if we can't get that right, then what are we doing? So it's truth and spirit, not just trying to hit everybody with the truth. So
Agreed, and I think too, it's personal growth. And people will see your growth. How you react, how you respond, how you reach out. And so if you're focused on growing in the Father, Torah, it's going to be seen, and people are going to want and see that in you, and they're going to want that what's in you. They want that in them. So the whole focus is: are we truly seeking the Father? Our everyday walk. That's our goal.
Wonderful, guys. Wonderful. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us here. And I want everyone to get to their website and check it out. So, guys, thank you so much, and shalom, shalom.
Thank you,
Shalom,
Paul.
and thanks for having us.
All right. Keep up the great work.
Come out of the world, oh my people, seek the truth, avoid the evil, learn Yahweh's ways, Torah Life Ministries. Come out of the world,